and it was just kind of like a weird, dingy open mic, but it was exclusively for queer people and women. And what happened was, my friend Catherine ran it, and she ran it with that incentive. And all of these people, the comedy scene at the time was very, 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 very um, just like hateful. So they were just like, how could you do this? What you're doing is segregation. And she would get messages every single day about how she needs to let straight white men on her show because she is adding to the divide. And they just be like, this is disgusting, like blah, blah, blah.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, a podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories they created there, and the people that they used to know. Brandon Ash-Mohammed is a Toronto-based comedian and event promoter. After graduating from comedy school, which is a real thing, who knew, he started to go out on the open mic scene, honing his stand-up skills. One of the very first places he performed was Slacks, a lesbian bar in Toronto's Village area, which was open from 1997 to 2013 and had a comedy night every Wednesday. We caught up to discuss Thanksgiving flavoured chicken wings, bombing on stage, and how in that venue he made lifelong friends.
That was like the first place where I started performing. Because I guess I should add this. I went to comedy school. So I went to the school called Humber College, and they have a comedy writing and performance program. And there, that's where I started performing. And that was like the first time I had really been booked out of that program and was regularly booked outside of that whole scene, the Humber scene.
So what was that course like?
I started when I was like 17, and basically they don't teach you how to be funny. They try to teach you how to kind of like hone your comedic voice and like different things to do. Some of it is very useful, some of it was not very useful. Like some of the things would be like, okay, like this is like joke structure. This is the history of comedy. But then other things would be like, how can you make mac and cheese with a coffee maker if you're on the road or something like that?
What, like skills for living?
Yeah, skills when you're on the road.
How to love baked beans.
Yeah.
That's quite incredible. So was there an audition?
There was an audition. So it was like, I remember literally this is going to be the 10th year that I started coming up next week. But it was, you had to write a sketch, and then I think you had to write some sort of essay, and then you had to write, then you had to do an audition, and part of the audition was improv. You had to do improv with these people, and they just like kind of selected you. And then you had to do like a 1 minute stand-up piece.
Wow, at 17. When you don't know shit about the world, you have to like give your observation.
I don't even know what I remember I talked about, I don't know, do you guys remember Peter Popoff Miracle Water?
No.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys had this in the UK, but I don't know how we had it in Canada. But what it was is there was this like televangelist, Peter Popoff, I think his name was, and he was selling this thing called Miracle Water, and it just came in this little like, it looked like an old, how the lube, like you know when they give you free lube,
Oh, okay.
like it looked like
a
little
sachet
plastic
type.
one,
Yeah.
like a little sachet, yeah, and it was of like a special water that would give you miracles, and there would be these like fun ads every single night or late at night, and they would just like have these people being like, I got the miracle water, I was in debt $50,000, and all of a sudden I got a divine transfer of $100,000. All of my debt was paid off, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so cool. So I wrote like a joke about it and about how I got the miracle water, and when I got it, there was nothing inside of it. It was empty.
Oh gosh, that's scary stuff. And so then, was that whole scene like really competitive?
The okay, yeah, it was like I remember my first year at Humber. Everyone was so competitive. Everyone was so mean. Everyone was so hateful. It was a horrible time. And I remember I wanted to leave the program, and but then I remember in my second year, I came back and I was just like, "Ooh, I got this! Like, I'm ready for y'all." And and then I like started like rising, and all these people that were so mean to me, I left them in the dust.
So there's that thing like how some people are naturally funny, and then some people are kind of like comedic funny,
Uh,
and then there's just some people who don't know the boundaries, and then are just trying to
yeah.
be funny
Oh,
all the time. Was it like that?
at the beginning, yes, and then I think they eventually toned it down. But it was really funny because everyone thought they were like the funniest person. 'Cause I guess they had all been like the funny kids in their school, and you quickly saw who was like actually like talented at comedy, and who just like was just like, oh, I'm like a naturally funny person. Like the divide was very quick.
For me, comedy not being part of the comedy world at all seems to be something that you're just like inherent, like you're just either good at or you're
Yeah.
not. So did those people just like end up bombing out, or can you learn?
I don't even know. Like, I feel like all of the people so out of my class, I think there was like 100 kids in my entire class out of all of the program. I think only three people are still performing, and those
Oh,
three
wow.
people, including myself, were like
Just getting that in there.
were at the beginning of that program, like seen as like, oh, these people are like naturally funny, or like, or not naturally funny. They're like they have like they are a comedian. Like
Yeah.
they know what is happening.
That's incredible though, that like that conversion being so low.
Yeah, I think it's just like comedy is very, 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 very hard,
Yes, yeah.
especially when you are 17. And in that program, it was a mix of ages. So there was like, I was 17, a bunch of my friends were 17, but then one of my good friends from the program, he was like 26 when he started
Yeah, yeah.
and had like a whole career prior. There was another lady and she was 40, and it
Yeah.
was just like a whole mix.
And then that's where you sharpened your teeth. No, what's the phrase? That's where
I
you
don't
cut your
own your
teeth.
tool.
You cut your
Cut my
teeth.
teeth, I guess, kind of. It was kind of like I don't think I would have. I was so painfully shy back then, and I don't think I would have been able to do comedy had I just done it how normal people do it, where they go to like an open mic and they start doing it like that. I wouldn't have been able to do it like that at that time.
And so it prepared you because it threw you in the deep end, but in a like a safer environment.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
I remember doing this set, and people would always like make fun of people. Like I remember this was at the very beginning of the program, and people were still like kind of like what is the word where they're like sizing each other up.
Yeah.
Remember, I was like gonna do stand up, and all these people were like looking at me, and they were like making this like they would do this thing where it looked like they were like eating something, but it meant they were like eating shit, and that's like eating shit is bombing. And I saw them like sneakily do that to me when I was like about to like walk on stage, and I was like, I'm gonna let these bitches know. And then I went on stage, and I remember like doing so well. And then these people were just like, and I was just like, hmm.
So people are listening to this. Can you describe the movement for eating shit? Like, what are the actions?
So it's like you're holding. Imagine like you're holding like a
Because it
banana in
looks
your
like you're
hand.
sucking a dick to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like biting it, and like tasting it and not liking it.
Okay. And that's the universal?
I don't know what that is. That's what Angelo used to do. Angelo, I love
Oh,
you. Angelo's one
bloody
of my good friends.
Angelo.
So,
But that's really interesting that you were painfully shy and still
oh my
wanted to
gosh.
pursue this career. Did anyone try and talk you out of it?
My dad and my parents kind of tried to talk me out of it. They'd be like, "Oh, you should do that as like a hobby. You should become like a lawyer." But then I was like, "No, I think that I'm funny, and I want to be an actor." But then I was like, "This is like the best way to do this." How I found out about the program was like, yeah, I was planning on going to like a theater school,
Hmm.
and then I went through this college notebook or like whatever list of courses, and I saw that there was like a comedy program. And then I looked up the comedy program and people that I really liked. There was a show in Canada that all the like millennials. How do I say this? All the Canadian millennials will know this show. It was called Video on Trial. I don't think y'all had it in the UK, but it was on this show called Much Music, which was our equivalent to like MTV, but then we had MTV Canada. Very confusing. But so basically, what they would do is they would take like a music video, and they would have these different comedians, and they would all like basically just like read them to filth, make jokes about them, and like as the music videos played, and that was like a really big show, and I loved it. And one of the comedians that I saw in it was this lady named Deborah DiGiovanni. So because I saw that she was there, I was like, okay, this program is legit, and that's how I decided to go to that comedy program. Which, like, looking back, I'm just like, that is like, had I known all of the things I know now, I don't think I would have done the program. Because to me, seeing Deborah DiGiovanni on Video on Trial, I assumed that she was this rich and famous comedian and made millions of dollars a year and was so successful. But what I didn't know is that she was a Canadian comedian, and I didn't know that the Canadian industry was very effed up, and there's no money in it. And yeah, but now she lives in LA and she's very successful. So okay, so
Well,
maybe yeah,
yeah, so maybe there is.
yeah.
But so you went through this process and you like honed your skills and you were like ready to take on the world. And that's when you went to Slacks for the first time.
That was like, yeah, it was like as I had graduated, what happened was is my friend, I met this girl, Natalie. Natalie Norman is like now, who at the time I didn't really know that well, but I met her at open mic in the summer of 2011. And I guess she had known that I was gay. And
I see where
she,
this is going.
yeah, so she was not gay. She's just like, she's straight. But my friend was putting this show together and she needed comedians. So then she told my friend about me, but then my friend thought I was somebody else. My other friend, Catherine, who was not my friend at the time, she thought I was this other comedian who was in my program named, what is his name? Brandon Trainer, who was like a straight white dude, but whatever. And she was like, yeah, I've heard so much about you, Brandon Trainer. Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, I'm Brandon Ash-Mohammed. And she's like, okay, well, you're here. So then, and then I performed and she liked me. And then that's how like everything happened. Like I just remember all like going to the open mic, being so nervous, being like everyone's gonna hate me, and then literally like meeting Catherine and Natalie outside of the bar, them smoking, and then us just like talking like we had been friends for like 20 years at that point. And that was like I was like, this is where my life began. This is where my current life began that day.
But and were you aware of that on the day, or is it just looking back?
I was just like, no. No, at that day I was like, these are my people.
Ah, that's really powerful. So do you remember what your first set was?
Not even really remember. I just remember them dying. I remember performing there several times after and also doing really well. And then all the other times after, just like bombing horribly. I remember performing the day after Obama got reelected. I remember sometimes there would be like people would have parties, but they wouldn't tell us. So we would like just try to do a stand up show in the middle of a party that had no idea that a stand up show was happening then, nor did they want a
Oh,
stand up show to happen.
oh.
So like it would just be like us arguing with the audience. I remember there was a lady, her name was Ellen, and it was her retirement party. And
Do you want to say anything to Ellen now?
I was like, I didn't say anything. My friend called her well, y'all British people like to say this. Like, my friend called her a cunt, and um, I remember Faye was very upset, and Catherine, who ran the show, was also very upset. But whatever. It's closed shortly after that. So
But and so then so it had a stand-up night.
yeah,
I'm assuming if people were kind of coming in without realizing that it was a stand-up night,
yeah.
it was free.
Like some people knew about it. Sometimes people would invite our friends, and they would come, and yeah, that's how it would work. But it wasn't like it. Honestly, was it wasn't like a special show. Like it was a special show to me, but like it wasn't like the most amazing show of your life that you've never heard of. It was just
Mm.
like a very. It was an open mic essentially.
Okay, okay. I am assuming that you also perform in non-queer venues.
Yeah.
What's the kind of difference for you in the audiences?
Okay. So non-queer. It's very strange. So I find it depends on the demographic of the queer audience. I tend to do very well with lesbians and queer women. Queer women love me, or gay men of color. I find that a majority of times when I perform for audiences that are predominantly gay white men, I do not do well. And
Ah.
but that's also a thing that happens with gay men in comedy, is that gay men in comedy
Oh.
have always find that when they perform for other gay men, it doesn't work. Like they don't laugh.
And why do you think that is?
My friend Andrew Johnson has a very good like theory of it. If you guys like Andrew Johnson, you guys should look Andrew Johnson up. You guys know who Catherine Ryan is. You know who Catherine Ryan is. You know who Catherine Ryan is.
I'm feeling a lot of pressure right now. Who is
Okay,
she?
no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Catherine Ryan is like a very big comedian in the UK, but she's from Canadian, and she's very good friends with Andrew Johnston. But I just was going on a side thing. But Andrew talks about how a lot of gay men grow up as like the anomaly in their community.
Hmm.
So they're kind of like the center of the universe. And when a gay man does stand up in front of another one, sometimes it challenges it. I don't know. Have you ever like been in a social group, and usually you're the only other gay dude, and then another gay dude comes, and you just feel like they're like competing with you for some reason? Have you ever had that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. That is what that whole energy is. Or it's just like, oh, like I'm the baddest bitch. But it's also like, how else do I just describe this? I don't know. I feel like because at that time and growing up for a lot of us, like gay media was so limited, and how we saw ourselves respected in the mainstream was so limited, that when we would see ourselves represented on stages, we kind of are like defiant of that, or we're kind of like, oh, this is not what I think is
Mm,
how we should be represented.
mm.
This is not what it is. And then there's also aspects of like misogyny, like how do I describe this? Like I notice that usually when a gay man does well on stage, he tends to either be a drag queen, or he has to be like classically attractive. Like we would watch like straight women perform, like stumble through their sets, make a bunch of like half-assed jokes, and the gay men be like, "Woo, yeah!" And then like someone like we'd perform, and we'd have all these just like very well-written jokes, and they'd be like, they just be giving us side eye.
But you said that queer men of color wouldn't respond
Yeah,
in that way.
they don't respond to me in that way. I think that they're more. I don't know. I think because there's so few, like people don't understand that there's so few like gay men of color in general
Yeah.
compared to like gay men. So I
Well,
don't
it's
know.
not.
Like,
It's not that they don't exist. It's that they're
not
not
that they don't
visible.
exist.
Yeah.
It's just that it's like it's completely different.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot harder to be out, and yeah, there's also just like a lower number because there's more white people. So
Well. Oh, yeah. Okay. Proportionally.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a minority within two different minorities.
Well, and so, see, this is just really interesting because I totally get what you're saying about queer men.
There's like a
Right.
competitiveness that I find
Yeah.
a lot of gay men have with each other that I don't really understand. But okay, it's also like a lot of gay men have been conditioned to hate themselves, and when they see that again represented, it's just kind of like, oh, I hate this. Like,
Yeah, totally. But then if you're extending that argument, then queer men of color have that additional kind of
kind of,
pressure.
but I think because there is so, because I don't notice it, because most of my friends that have had this experience are white gay men that have had it with most queer audiences, and most queer audiences are white gay men. Now, with me, as I'm the only like gay black man that does stand up in Canada, so when I
Is that in your
perform,
bio?
that is, it's not in my bio, but it's true fact. And people don't believe me, but I'm just like, Google it.
Well, what's going to
Um,
happen? What is going to happen when another black man comes along
I'll
and
be
does
like,
comedy?
welcome, welcome to the party. Go with. Let me
Okay,
break it down
good,
for.
good.
I will
Take you under my
always,
wing.
yeah, always. Like, I started my show. I do a lot of like work like that, and I try to do a lot of work like that in my community, especially. Like, I started Canada's first and really only comedy show that exclusively features queer comedians of color, called the Ethnic Rainbow. Look it up. Um, and I forgot what I was talking about
So
now.
you were talking about your colleagues that are white.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. So when they have that experience, they are mostly just performing for people that are like them. So I don't think that they even actively notice gay men of color in the audience because it's
mm,
usually like one or two. So they're not like thinking about like, oh, what is like this person doing? But
yeah.
when I'm performing, that is what I'm thinking about. I'm like, where are my people? Like, let me go look for my people. And then all of the times after shows when I performed and I felt like I've done horrible, I will have like gay men of color that I didn't see be like, oh my god, we loved it so much, blah 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 blah. Blah.
Mm,
I think maybe they are like that with maybe they're like that with the gay white men. I don't know, but I think that because there's just so few gay men of color that when we see each other, we always like really show up each other for each other. And I think that's also it's different because when you are black and you see other black people, you always want them to succeed. You know what the struggle is like. So there's that. And I think that's kind of what that cancels out the internalized homophobia
bitchy
because you're just,
competitiveness.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
just like, yo, this is my sister. Like, we're in this.
Mm,
There's also like a history of that, like with the whole ball scene, that how the whole ball scene was created was from gay men of color being excluded from the mainstream. So
yeah, and I'm not saying like I'm not trying to conflate them and say that they're exactly the same thing, but the majority of gay white men will have experienced being excluded.
yeah,
And so why is their response so very different? I mean, I'm not asking for the I know
yeah.
you don't know the answer to that
I
question,
don't know
but
the answer. But I think that they, yeah, because they're performing for people that are, I don't know, that
yeah.
I guess gay male culture is very different, especially because I feel like the struggles between gay white men and gay men of color are also very different.
Yeah.
So I think that is also the thing. That's like also like a really big factor in that.
Yeah. I mean, there's just too many gay white men, isn't there?
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I don't like doing queer shows because of not because of that, just because I like doing queer shows when I know that it's going to be like a very like queer femme like women show because
Yeah.
I know that they don't really have that and they're always just very like welcoming of me. Like whenever I get to open for like e a female queer comedian, I'm always just like, yo, I got this. Especially if I know that she has like a very big like queer female audience, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll be fine. But when it's just like a queer comedian that I know has a very big, like, predominantly white gay male audience, I'm like, I'm scared.
This is my experience as well, but because I'm like a musician who plays acoustic guitar when he gigs, I've always kind of explained it in that way, like, oh, women are conditioned to like Indigo Girls and Ani DeFranco,
Yeah.
so they'll get me, and gay men are pushed towards dance music, so they'll just be like, nah,
Yeah.
man, I'm not into
So is
this.
that what happens to you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're just like, we don't like her. We're done with it.
Yeah, like where are the four to the floor beat? Like I'm not digging this. All right. So where were we? We've really not gone to slacks very much
I've
right
not
now.
gone to Slack, but
Oh no, but I really wanted to ask you this thing about bombing.
Obama.
It happens.
It
And
happens.
it's just this thing. But how do you then leave without hating yourself for the next week?
Oh, you don't. You hate yourself for the next.
You just accept
Sometimes
it.
I've gotten a lot better at it. Like before, it would like destroy me, especially when it happens like consistently. Like when I was sick a couple months ago, like in March, I had lost the ability to hear. So when I would do stand
That's
up, I would be able to.
great. So you can't hear them booing.
No, it's not good because when you're doing stand up, you're doing your jokes. You can't hear people laughing at you, so it just feels like that you're bombing.
Ah,
And if you feel like you're just bombing consistently, you're just like, oh, what am I doing with my life? Like, and you just have to like work. You have to constantly just like work through that. And it gets better now. Like now, when I bomb, I'm just like, oh, it was a time. Sometimes it bees like that, and I'm like, okay, and I try to move on.
it's so, yeah, like some days you can just be like, oh, well, wasn't my day. And then some days it's just like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm going to do with
Yeah,
myself. And yeah, I'd really like to not have that feeling. But that's life. And so you didn't pick slacks specifically because you were like, I want to
Blacks
perform to a
picked me.
slacks picked you.
Yeah.
Can you describe what it's like physically like?
Okay. So we go through the front door. I'm trying to like see if I can remember this because I have a very visual memory, and I can see what I'm like, what I would see when I was on stage. So you go to the front door. All of the like front side of the building is all like glass windows, including the door. And then there was just kind of like a table and chair section with like couches and maybe some like cool like neon sculpture type things. And then you walk in further straight, and there's just like tables, just simple tables. There was a whole cushioned, like cushioned. How do I describe this? Like a cushioned chair section.
Like encouraging people to like lie on top of one another type thing.
Kind of like that, like in those booths. But it wasn't a booth. It was just like I guess one side was part of the booth, and then that led to the kitchen, and then next to that, there was like the bar on the other opposite side of like where all these other tables were, and then up to the bar, and then there was like the stage, and it was kind of like in the middle of the bar, but like the way that the bar was laid out, um, like there was like a brick wall, so it was like there was like a brick wall, and you were like when you were on stage, that was like your backdrop was like the brick wall, but then there was the booth on the side for the sound, and then there was like a hallway type thing, but it was just like where the tables were, and that was like the kitchen. That was kind of like what it was. It wasn't like it was very black. I remember a lot of it was very black, like very like chic, like black. Like it was just like a lot of bar stools. Um,
Okay. And did you go there when you weren't performing?
occasionally, occasionally we would meet up there, but mostly it would be like every Wednesday night. The whole crew would get together, and we would go to do slacks, and then we would go to Zippers. And Zippers used to be a gay bar on in the village. It no longer exists anymore. And they would have that would be the drag nights, the drag king night, and we would watch drag kings perform.
Ah, okay.
That was the first time I saw drag kings, or I didn't even know that they had that, and it was really cool.
And that was your standard Wednesday, go and do an open mic slot and then go out.
Yeah,
So then what do you do? Like, do you just bounce like when your slot goes terribly?
No, we would just like sit around, and then when you were at Slacks, you would get a free drink for performing. So you would have like your free drink,
You'd nurse that for a few
and
hours.
yeah, you would talk to your friends, you would hang out. Um, some of us would have our birthdays there. I remember Catherine's 30th birthday was there. Um,
Do you remember the very best performance you did there?
yes, I remember that was the first time I met my friend Marilla Weck. She's also from the UK. And I remember she was laughing so hard. I remember there was this other gay comedian, and he was looking me up and down real nasty like as I was performing, and I just like killed. I remember that so well. But I met like literally all of like my close friends at that club or at that bar. All of the people that I have been best friends with for like almost like 5 to 8 years are from that bar.
So whilst the audience might not have like lapped you up, you got to meet a lot of other queer
Yeah, and a lot of
comedians.
comedians are like these were the people that were just like, oh no, like this person has like some sort of talent, and it led to so many different things. Like I feel like that helped lead to like my shows. That helped lead to my friend Natalie's show, The Crimson Wave. It's like a very big, iconic feminist comedy show that happens every Sunday at Comedy Bar for the last like 5, 6 years. Um, and it's just like it really had a whole effect on our comedy scene, I think.
And so this set where you killed it,
Uh,
what were you talking about?
I don't even remember. I honestly don't. I wish I remembered. I don't know. I think it was like my old jokes, which I don't even remember.
How does it work when you're a comedian? Because when you're like a musician, you're like, okay, well, I have these songs and I'll pick a few of these songs and I'll play them.
It's like the same thing.
It's like the same thing. But then how do you like knit them together?
I don't know. You just like I kind of like to do it like kind of like a story, and one thing leads to another.
Mm.
So there's like some sort of like narrative. But I think back then, what I used to do was make sure that none of them were connected. So that was like funny when you would jump from like one subject to a subject that had nothing
Ah,
into.
okay.
So yeah, something like that. Like everything's like very intentional, and you either want to create some sort of narrative or do something in a way that creates like comedic effect.
Yeah, yeah. And so the opposite of best performance ever. Do you remember your worst performance ever there?
I think it was the time Ellen performed, or not Ellen, like the comedian performed. I think it was when Ellen, the person, showed up. I remember her, and with her whole party, and then my friend called them a cunt, and then we had gotten in so much trouble. And
Oh,
then I
oh,
remember,
so this is the older lady.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
then I think I was like gonna headline the show or something, and I remember I was doing a joke about something. I can't remember what it was. Something about me being Canadian in America, and then the person that performed me did a joke with the exact same punchline, and I was like, "Yo, I'm fucked. I can't. That was going to be my closer." And I remember just like panicking and just being like, "Oh, I bombed," and just feeling like I've embarrassed myself in front of the who's who of like Toronto comedy, but they really weren't. But I felt really embarrassed.
What? So you freaked yourself out before you even went on
Yeah,
stage? Yeah. Oh, that's shit. So
yeah,
you're just there, like, I just want to get off. Yeah.
yeah.
So I generally ask people if there was anyone that they flirted with or maybe made out with in the venue that we're talking about. Is there anyone that you
So
could
there
think
was
about?
two dudes. There was one dude that this is how do I tell this story and not sound arrogant? But
Oh, go for it.
okay, so this is the story of what happened. So there was this one dude that I met, and he laughed at my jokes so much or whatever. I think we had talked on Grinder, and we were gonna meet up one day, and then he was like, "Do you have nudes?" And then I sent him like a picture of my D, and then he was just like, "Yeah, that's we're not gonna. This is I think that's like too much for me." And yeah, so we didn't end up.
So what's this got to do with slacks? Or are you just
Oh
bragging?
no, because he was talking. He I met him at Slacks.
You after he said he didn't want you.
No, it was before. That's how I met him. He saw me perform at Slacks, and that's how like he
Oh,
was
and then
interested.
you started. Okay, sorry, I wasn't following
Sorry, sorry.
that.
And that was him. And then I also see him sometimes at my other friend's show, and it's weird. But he said that like it was too much for him. But
But like what?
it's
So
not
he
really that
couldn't.
like impressive.
He couldn't just like cup it, or like he's just like flat out no.
I'm not. I can't deal with all of that.
I mean, he's just not ambitious. He's not ambitious enough.
Not
Like,
ambitious.
yeah.
Not ambitious.
So that, yeah, forget him. So what? Who was the other guy?
Well, this was at like this wasn't technically at Slacks. This was like after Slacks. This was like outside of Slacks, where I just
Oh.
like met a dude when we were both like teenagers. I think I was 19 and he was like 18 or something. And then yeah, we did some stuff in a park. And
Was he ambitious enough?
he was ambitious.
Okay. Oh,
He
well.
he would have been like if he had seen what he had, he would have been like, "Yo, I'm not speaking to this man ever again."
Wait, what?
Oh, I was just saying that this man had a huge penis, and
Oh, he had a huge bean. Oh,
yeah, the
okay.
guy that I met in the park,
Oh, and so the other guy would have been like
the guy, the other,
just totally out of the
like I'm
running.
like, yeah,
Ah, right. Well, this might have gotten a bit weird.
it's okay. You asked the question, but a story. This is what I remember where he said that, but I was just like, it's really not that like impressive, but okay, sure, why not?
Do you
If that's the reason why you don't want to, sure.
do you have this weird thing where people see you perform and then they're like, "Oh, I really want to like get to know you more," and then they get to know you more and they're like, "Oh, you're kind of just an ordinary person."
Yeah.
Isn't that annoying?
Or people will be like, "You're not as like fun." Well, they don't say that, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, like I thought you'd be like, at 100 all the
Oh
time. Why are you not?
no, I'm a regular person. It's very tiring to be like that all the time.
It's really weird. Like you just feel like there's something wrong with you, but it's them who has it all twisted.
I have people say weird things to me. I'll get people like, I'll be like, I've had one person be like, "You remind me of RuPaul," and I'm just like, "You're just saying that because we're both young and black."
Were they able to expand on that?
No. And then another person would always be like, "You remind me of Titus from Kimmy Schmidt," and I was just like, "Okay, again, that's just
What?
like, yeah." I'm just like, you're just naming gay black people and or gay black men specifically, and being like, "That's you."
Oh my God. Why would oh. I mean, first of all, why would you ever say to someone, "You remind me of someone"? Because what are they going to do with that information? Like,
Like, oh yeah, like,
brilliant, thank you.
thanks so much.
But at least, have some kind of something to back it up. Ugh, people, yuck. Right. Okay, so Slacks. Do you remember hearing about it closing?
I remember I heard rumors of it, like it was going to close, and then we had a Pride show or something arranged for it, and we were supposed to do it, but then the bar closed. Then at last minute, we did it at Comedy Bar, which is like the big comedy venue in Toronto.
Hmm.
It's like the comedy venue in Toronto. But I remember, yeah, being like sad that it closed and hearing about it because it was fun. They also had pretty good food. Remember the food? I liked the food.
Okay, quickly tell me about the food. What did they sell?
It was just like normal bar food, but I thought it was really good. The chef was really nice. She was this cool like black lesbian with dreads, and I remember she made really amazing wings. There was these wings that they sold there, and they were called like Thanksgiving wings. So basically, it was like the chicken wings were, I guess, like roasted like a turkey, or like in whatever seasonings they do for that. And then on top of it, it was served on top of it with like stuffing and cranberry sauce. I remember those were really good.
And were they year round?
Yeah, because
And
there was like a wing night every single night. It was like a wing and bingo.
oh, dirty bingo.
Oh yeah, it was Dirty Bingo. That's what it was. That's what it was.
I
Did you
wrote
look that up?
I wrote that down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was Dirty Bingo, and if you won, you would win like sex toys.
Oh, okay.
And I remember one time I like won one, and I think this is when I smoked a ton of weed, and I like took it out of the package. But then I was like, oh, I have a show, I have to leave. So I just like took it out of the package and like I was like, I'm gonna hide it from my so like my grandmother doesn't find it. And then completely left the package on the bed. And then
But what was
just
it?
like
What was it? A
it was
dildo?
like a some sort of dildo or something. I don't know. And then
Oh,
I don't
I
even know.
don't know. I don't know.
I don't even know where it is. Um, and then I don't think I even used it. And then I just remember being like, "Oh no, I left it on the bed. My grandma's gonna find it." And then just find it like pleasantly like put in my garbage can, just like properly. Yeah,
And then is it just never spoken about again?
just never spoke. And it was like I couldn't even say anything like, "Oh, it was something else," because it was just like literally like it was like the plastic casing that and the plastic casing was
with
just like the
like with
exact
the veins popping out
yeah
and
yeah yeah.
I mean, what could you have said that was?
I don't know.
I mean, it's too late now, but like some kind of kitchen utensil of some sort. Anyway, for next time, like
Next time, next time.
come up with something. But so the venue closing, you said it like just closed
It
suddenly.
just closed suddenly.
What
It
was the
just happened.
story?
I don't know what happened. I think it was. I heard that the owners were very wealthy and they lived in this area of. You guys know what you know what the Hamptons are.
Yeah.
So I think they lived in the equivalent of, I guess, our Hamptons, which are is this area called Muskoka,
Hmm.
and that's what I heard about them. And I heard that the business wasn't doing that well, and they owed everybody. They owed like something like I don't know if it was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of rent or like $60,000 worth of rent.
But a lot of rent.
Yeah, it was a lot of rent, and because of that, they just like got shut down. I don't even think I remember at one point the kitchen had just closed. I wanted to order stuff, and they're like, the kitchen's closed. They're like, what happened? They're like, they didn't pay the chefs or something.
Oh wow. So the bar was still running, but they
Yeah, the
just
bar was still running, but the chefs were not being paid, and I think they just like screwed over a lot of people or something, and that's what happened. It wasn't getting enough support, and yeah. But from what I've read, there's just like not lesbian bars. Just like they have people aren't supportive of them, and they aren't able to last as long as the gay bars, or for some reason I don't know.
yeah, well that's what I was going to ask. Like so what like did anything spring up to
No,
replace it? No.
nothing. The village right now is going through a change, and we're seeing that there's like originally there was like spreading outside of the village, and there was kind of like the queer west scene. I saw that you did an episode about the beaver.
Yeah.
So like there was things like the beaver. Um, my friend Maggie Casella, who I was going to tell you about, she used to run a venue called the Flying Beaver Pubare, and it was like kind of like a queer like cabaret space slash bar slash cafe, and it burnt down. She doesn't know what happened. It just
Oh
like completely
gosh.
burnt down. But people think that she burnt it down to get the insurance money, but no. But things like that like popped out, and they were really big venue space. It's just like very, very, very expensive to live in the village now. So because of that, it's really hard for places to spring up. Like essentially, all of the old gay bars from whatever have closed, or they're being posed to build like condos. There
Hmm.
was there's a venue, a very famous venue. It's still open. It's called Church and Tango, and it's or not Church and Tango, Cruise and Tango. Sorry, Cruise and Tango. And they were going to tear it down to build a condo, but then all these people rallied, and now they're like protecting it. So they're building the condo around this building. The village is kind of like slowly being drained of everything.
Yeah. And the only way you can survive is to be a destination venue
Yeah,
rather than
yeah,
just like a local pub.
yeah.
So, what what difference did slacks make to your life?
It literally gave me all of my friends. And I think it was really the first place where the Toronto comedy scene, and I guess like larger Canadian comedy scene, saw me. And it was really the only place where I was able to speak and be fully myself on stage, and allowed me the opportunity to do that, so that I could take that to other venues around, I guess, the country.
Hmm.
It really just like gave me a community. I think that's really was the most important thing, that it gave me a community.
Did you ever go to Slacks? Well, if you did, please tell me all about it. You can find me on Insta, Twitter, Facebook, all the usual, with the username KAndersonMusic. And just tell me your stories. I want to hear them. You can also find out more about Brandon by giving him a follow on Instagram. His username is BrandonAMComedy. And his comedy album, Capricornication, I hope I said that right, is out now to buy and stream. Lost Spaces is not only a podcast, but a concept record as well. I've been writing songs about queer venues and the people who used to live their lives there, and will be releasing songs over the coming year. You can hear the first single, Well Groomed Boys, which is also playing underneath my talking right now on all streaming platforms. If you liked this episode, I would really appreciate if you subscribed, left a review on Apple Podcasts, or just told people who you think might be interested in hearing it too. I am Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.